George's on Vista is in the heart of Fraser Rise. You'll find us at Caroline Springs George Cross. Looking for a bit of fun with your meals? Tuesday night is bingo night. Bingo books are $2, eyes down at $7. And we have a special bingo menu for you to choose from, so be sure to get in early and grab a bite to eat beforehand. Friday night is poker night. Registration is from 6:30pm, with poker starting at 7:30pm. Why not join us beforehand for happy hour? Kicks off at 5:30. We're also on Uber Eats, so you can enjoy your favourite Georgie's meals in the comfort of your own home. Find us on the app. Dining in? Be sure to book your table to avoid disappointment. Bookings can be made via our website, georgiesonvista.com.au.
Good evening and welcome to the Football Out West show, and we are now in the second 45-minute segment, which is known as the Press Box, gents. My name is Tonci. If you've just joined us, introduce yourselves, gentlemen.
My name's Steve, and I feel like I've just seen you a moment ago.
Yeah, on a different show.
And I'm Craig, and I'm the third part of the deadly. I can't even say it as duo because it's the trio.
It's the trio.
It's a terrible trio.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. If you've just missed out, we had 45 minutes of the extra time, although it's pretty funny because I think the extra time should be the second show, should it? And not the first show. But no, the extra time is all about bringing you all the latest news, views, and what's happened over the weekend. And if you've missed out on that, you can watch it on our Facebook replay. You can watch it later on YouTube as well. Normally it would go live via YouTube.
I like that. We have extra time before regular time. We don't play by the rules on the Football Out West show.
We are indeed. And talking of special, we've got a special show lined up for you folks tonight in a brand new look studio for the, we're for the first time in about 3 years, we're all able to come together. There will be a few teething problems.
This is in real life, IRL as the kids say.
In real life, yeah, that's right.
Who would have thought?
I wouldn't really know what the young people speak these days. Isn't that right?
Our viewers will know all about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, tonight, the Press Box, what's it all about? And what have we got on the show? And maybe even drop a little hints about what is to come in weeks to come.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later on in the show. But first off, we've got a fantastic guest. We've had him on before. He's a friend of the show. It's all about the AAFC and the proposed second division, which everybody's chomping at the bit to get up and running. So this evening we've got NICK GALATAS, who's the chairman of the AAFC, coming on.
Yeah, that should be fantastic. I can't wait for that. It's something that's been talked about a fair bit. The report was released just last week by the AAFC, Association of Australian Football Clubs, into the second division. Before we get into that, gents, I thought might be a good idea, might be a good chance to talk about the A-League. Where is the A-League going on at the moment? Steve, first of all, to you, the crowds seem to be dwindling. Paramount Plus, there's been mixed reactions or mixed feedback about that. What is going on with the A-League before we even talk about the National Second Division?
Yeah, some big issues there, isn't there? With obviously crowds has been a big talking point from a lot of people, and there's a lot to play out there. But hopefully we'll see a rebound in crowds as we head towards the finals of the men's competition. The women's competition already wrapping up already. We're hoping to see a longer season in that. And that's something we need to make mention of as well, I think, going forward. Paramount Plus, to have my frustrations, having the subscription, you get home and you've missed the match. You want to watch a replay or at least highlights or a mini match, and it's not even loaded up yet and you can't even watch it. Obviously, a lot of complaints about the pause and rewind not being there yet when they exist in platforms as simple as YouTube. So it would be good to see those. And obviously, there's going to be some teething problems, but hopefully sooner rather than later, before the season's out, we can see those sort of features coming in. But yes, definitely one of my big frustrations, coming home to watch a replay of a match, Not loaded yet. Can't watch it.
And then adverts on the 10 platform doesn't help either, does it?
No, it doesn't help. No,
there's some work to do. I think the bigger question is why are the crowd dwindling? Because they certainly are. It's not what it's been unless you're a Melbourne Victory supporter. They're getting good crowds to every game, but the rest seem to be really struggling. So something food for thought for Football Australia, and certainly like to try and find out why those crowds are dwindling, Steve. It's
yeah, we saw a rare exception last night with the Sydney Derby, but you'd hope that it wouldn't take the big Sydney Derby to draw out a decent crowd, particularly for teams that have been established for a long time, like the Wanderers and Sydney FC, and have previously drawn okay crowds and been very successful, particularly Sydney FC in recent years. And obviously they've been shipped around different venues like Hard Oval and the like, and eventually they'll move back to their newer SFS, but that's going to be a huge venue, and if they don't draw good crowds in there, the atmosphere, well, it will be the crowd will be dwarfed by the size of the stadium.
Western City Wanderers in their old stadium. Now they've moved into the big stadium in the Banquet Stadium.
Yeah,
there's nobody in there.
Yeah,
it's something that needs to be looked at. Whether the National Second Division will help or hinder that, we'll find out a little bit more when we speak to Nick.
Gents, I don't know. Are we rushing things? I mean, Western United came into this league. They had 6 months to sort themselves out and get a squad together. We saw MacArthur Rams have an extra year on top of that. But just, I don't know. I mean, I want to allude.
Rams?
MacArthur FC. Sorry, MacArthher Rams are in the NPL. I've got NPL on my mind. I think that's what it is.
They've often been mistakenly referred to as the Rams.
Overnight,
not the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Overnight, gents, this happened in the United States, and I know people are going to say we've got different markets. They've got a massive market. Charlotte FC, 3 or 4 years in the making. They finally made their home debut, if you like. And already they set an MLS all-time attendance record, 74,479. Prior to that, one of the expansion teams, Atlanta United, had the record going for a good, I think it was 3 or 4 matches or something like that. Steve, you've got some connections in America, by the way, so you probably understand the US market better than us. But, I mean, we constantly say we need to take a leaf out of people's books and what. Have we been looking a little bit too much to the European side of things, at least how to run the show? Should we be looking to what the Americans do in the way they do the marketing and maybe their strategy?
I'm not so sure about that one. It's a big crowd figure, but my message would be don't believe the hype, perhaps, because we've had 52,000 people watch, 55,000 people watching Melbourne Victory in the when it was known as the Telstra Dome back in the day. We've had the big numbers in the past as well. I think the place we should be looking, if anywhere, to compare ourselves would perhaps be the J League, where they've got a good football platform. They've got so many professional clubs there now, something like 80 or something or more, 120 something professional clubs in Japan now. Relegation, promotion, very good level of technical football. I think that's where we should be looking, and they do pull good crowds as well, and they have fanatical fans that love getting involved, jumping and chanting like the whole stadium, like we've seen when they've come and played. Their clubs have come and played Melbourne Victory at Amy Park in the previous years in the Asian Champions League.
And you also have to look at the numbers. There's 26 million in Australia.
I know he was going to say that. I know he was going to say
26 million in Australia. There's 26 million in Charlottesville.
Yeah, but we've got how many? 11 professional clubs. They've got 28. Do we draw the parallels? Let's ask the man in the know. We're going to bring him on. We're going to bring the and there he is, NICK GALATAS. He is the chairman of he's the chairman of the Association of Australian Football Clubs. Firstly, Nick, absolute pleasure having you join us. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Football Show's The Press Box.
Thanks, gents. Thank you for having me. And good discussion to follow. I must say I'm pleased you've got me on in the second 45 minutes, so I just want to do my best work. I'm a bit, I can't play the full 90 these days, so I'm glad you brought me on after about 60. I'm looking forward to a good chat, and I followed what you've just said about the A-League, and I think that's something that we could maybe touch on to start with because of the nature of the conversation. I'd sort of make a bit of a comment if I might, because what struck me, again, and this is why I think it's so embedded now in our discussion here that we're missing it, and that is that the question itself, how's the A-League going as opposed to how's the game? So we're already dividing it up, and it's like, we're talking about the A-League crowds or the second division crowds when we've got them, or the NPL. It should be, how's our game going? And we're already even in that conversation, even in that question, hiving it up and hiving it off. And we've already, revealing that we've got divisions in our game in terms of sections of the game. So I think what we hope to achieve down the track, and we'll talk a bit about it tonight, is not having that conversation later, so that the crowds are up for the game or down for the game across the board, and hopefully up will be the answer. Because even when you guys talked about Victory having good crowds now, 7,000 at the MacArthur game the other night. If you stop and think, that's not it's good by what the A-League's been doing this year, but really for Victory, not a good crowd. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Compared to the past. As a standalone crowd, maybe that's where we're at, but really compared to the past, that's 7. And the Sydney game, Western Sydney and Sydney, I think was 14, if I'm not wrong. Now, again, if that was the crowd that we were talking about 2, 3, 4 years ago, people would be in disbelief about how low that is. But yet, compared to what we've had, that's quite good. So I think if we need to start talking about the game as a whole, and that's where we come in, increasing the participation of people within the game across the board, so that it all filters up to our top clubs, so people are engaged more. I think that's what we've lost. That's where we come in, and that's what I'm hoping to talk about.
Now, Nick, just a leading question as well. You mentioned you're coming in as a substitute in the second half. How many interviews have you actually done now since the report came out? Because I think you've done quite a few.
I've done a few, and I know my lines now, boys, so you better come up with some new questions. I've lost track, but look, I've done a few. But I must say also, did a few last year. You might remember, and Craig, I think, talked about why having coming on last year when we put out our interim report. And what's happened now is that, a lot of what we'd said has now come to fruition, solidified, confirmed, and now we're far further down the track across the board from Football Australia down in implementing this much anticipated new national division.
All right. Now, Nick, what's the feedback been on the report so far? Obviously, one of the big details in the report has been 3 possible models, either that a full-scale model, a conference system, or a system known as a Champions League style system. What's the feedback been that you've got on the 3 systems, and are we right in saying that most people, including I think us here, would rather like to see the full-scale national second division?
The feedback has been that, firstly, everyone's received it positively. It's been we've had amazingly positive feedback to what we've done. That's been very heartening, because it's been a lot of hard work, a lot of commitment by the clubs, by us as a bunch of volunteers at AAFC, doing it as a second job. We've all got our day jobs, which isn't this, but this is our love and our passion. So we've put a lot into it. So it's been a positive feedback to what we've done. We've also had very positive feedback from Football Australia, I'm heartened to say. They've appreciated receiving it. They're working through it. We've started to deal with their people internally who are going to deliver the second division. So that's good. I've had discussions with other stakeholders as well, and that's good, and some to come in the coming days. So looking forward to all of that. Now, in terms of your question about the model, obviously we've considered everything as best as we can, and we've come down very firmly towards a national model. Now, I've said this before, you might have heard me on other interviews, and there's an attractiveness or an immediate impulse to try and look at alternatives to the national model, because people think, oh my God, how are we going to afford it? The expense, the travel, look at the A-League struggling financially, etc., etc. But the cost of not doing it is greater than the cost of doing it, is the long and the short of it. So if you miss out on the national games, if you miss out on the big Sydney teams playing the Brisbane and big Melbourne and Adelaide teams, and you hive it up somehow, we can't. You guys put up a photo of America, of the US like before. We don't have 50 decent-sized cities in this place. We can't have that sort of conference-based east-west, north-south, I don't know, northwest, southwest, whatever you want to call it, comp. That doesn't work. And the minute you go to what we call this Champions League, for want of a better phrase, style competition, you end up not achieving all the great benefits that a national competition brings, in that the clubs are the same, they're playing locally, they're not going to bring in new crowds, they're not going to have an elite type competition, players moving up to the top, centralising talent and therefore playing best against best. So we miss out on all of that. So the feedback that we've got is that from our clubs is that we can deliver the national model. The feedback we've got elsewhere is that the national model is the ideal. The question that remains now to deliver is demonstrating that it can be delivered, and that's where we come in, and we hope to be able to demonstrate that working with Football Australia and other stakeholders.
It's Tonci here, Nick. Look, we're just going to play a little bit of footage there from one of the games played on the weekend, and that was the big original derby, the original Melbourne derby, South Melbourne and Melbourne Knights. And good game, had everything, a lot of excitement there. Couple of goals, but not as many goals as I guess we'd love to see. But nonetheless, the crowd sort of seemed to be a little bit smaller. Now, the clubs themselves, are they kind of holding back? And there's a good sort of, are they holding back, obviously, as far as their playing staff, as far as their infrastructure, stadium infrastructure? Are they just waiting at the moment to see what's going to happen with this proposed second division? And when they get the green light, are there clubs around Australia with a lot of backing behind them ready to just explode? What's the feeling like on the ground?
Look, the two that you've got up there, South Melbourne and Melbourne Knights, obviously two strong candidates from Melbourne. They're gearing up certainly to apply. That they consider themselves strong. They're members of ours, of course, and they're members of our partner group that you put up earlier, the photo of the signatories from Melbourne. There's others from Melbourne as well. There's clubs from Adelaide, there's clubs from Sydney, clubs from elsewhere around the country that are keen to apply. Not just, of course, from the third, there'll be others. There might be combinations of clubs. There's a combination from Perth. There might be combinations coming together from all sorts of places within Melbourne. So you'll see all sorts of moves being made when the expression of interest comes out, is my expectation and anticipation. Clubs that will have facilities and other clubs coming together with crowds, with funding. I think you'll see different types of organisations and models of clubs coming together to participate. So that's one thing. As far as crowds go, Tonci, look, the NPL is a third-tier type competition. That's the reality of it. Supporters know it. There were 4 or 5 games on Friday night in Melbourne. At the same time, the National Second Division is going to bring together so that the teams whereby South Melbourne and the Knights, if they're in it, will be stronger actual teams in the park, playing a different type of football. So that you won't have, they'll be the best of from Melbourne, apart from the A-League teams. And that's the idea, to streamline the competition so that we've got a second division comprising of teams which then have better talent on the park, provide a better spectacle, and also games across the country, so that the competition itself, being a national competition, the feedback is that the people want to see that and are more likely to support it than supporting a local state competition that they're seeing now. So the crowd was quite decent, as I understand it, on Monday night. Friday night, not Monday night, Friday night. It wasn't what it was hoped. Maybe not as high as what will be when the second division's on. I didn't get along. I'm stuck in ISO at the moment. My daughter's got COVID, so I'm at home. I was going to be there, but they missed out on me. But I think, guys, the crowds are there, and they are there at a sufficiently high number to support the national competition. They're not there to support a major comp. We're not going to start with 5,000 type crowds initially. When even the A-League's not getting those at the moment. We want to set the bar where the clubs are at a second division level and grow. That's the aim of the report that you will have seen. So we want to grow from a sustainable base.
Now, Nick, how are we looking on the timing of this? Because there's been a serious talk and recommendations that we're going to see this in 2023. That's next year, so that's coming up quite soon. But that's also exciting as well, but obviously challenging. So your thoughts on that and the ongoing discussions with Football Australia, but also the timing of the season as well of a national second division, because there's a whole lot of possibilities there of trying to align it with the existing NPL teams. Looks like the A-League's going to remain as a summer league. We thought maybe that might change a year or so ago, or possibly an overlap of the two. What do you think is the optimum model for this? Because it'd be interesting to see how we can piece it all together.
It is. Look, part of it, again, we don't need to solve every problem up front. It might be that we work through somewhere as we go. So that this is something that's new, that needs to be slotted in, as you say, and we'll have to work it up and see. So a lot of it will depend on what the other stakeholders say as well. from our perspective, we've said we're happy to align with the A-League season. Equally, we're happy to keep going as the sort of as a National Premier League, to call it that way, a competition that is across the board, the sort of National Premier Leagues. It could be the National Premier League, where we are this competition plays at the same time as the NPL plays. And that'll depend on a number of factors. You will have noted the domestic match calendar put out by the Football Australia last year sometime, I forgot when, has made provision for the National Second Division. It has made provision for it to extend both backwards into summer, so to speak, so it aligns with the A-League season, or forwards into the NPL season. So that's something to be worked out. And the optimal model or the optimum timing depends a little bit on a number of factors that we're working through with FA. So we've started that process. We're talking to them. And that's for 2023, guys. It does sound optimistic, doesn't it? It's around the corner, 2023. And I know how long it takes. And I know, I'm a lawyer. I know how timetables slip. And we lose, you say April, something's due, then it becomes May, then it's June. But we're all working for 2023. Now, part of the answer to that might depend on, and I say might, on the answer to the other question, which is when's the season going to run? So if it runs early, as in if it runs in as a NPL type season through a calendar year starting in February, March onwards, it might be too soon. We're only 12 months from that. Whereas if it runs late in the season, say as a summer league commencing at the end of the 2023 year, then that's doable, I think. So we're working towards it. We've got a target. It's Football Australia's target, and we're happy to assist in them achieving it.
We're talking with NICK GALATAS. He is the chairman of the Association of Australian Football Clubs. We're going to take a very, very short break. And when we return, we're going to continue this riveting discussion about the National Second Division. Folks, don't go away. You're tuning into the Football Out West shows, the Press Box. A couple of words from our major sponsor, so don't go away.
CMF Soccer Coaching offers tailor-made personal and small group development coaching throughout the western suburbs of Melbourne and Greater Geelong. With over 20 years of experience working and playing within the academy systems of several professional clubs in both the UK and Australia, CMF Soccer Coaching has a player-first philosophy to ensure that all sessions are tailored around the individual's needs at all times. Under the guidance of UEFA and AAFC qualified coaches, we specialise in one-on-one and small group coaching sessions, offering European-style academy-level training with the sole aim of improving players' technical and game understanding in a safe, friendly environment. If you are new to the game or a seasoned campaigner looking for some additional coaching, then we can help. To find out more about what we can offer and how we can help you improve your game, visit our Facebook or Instagram pages for more information, or simply email us at cmfsoccercoaching@gmail.com. Looking for a space for your next function? At George's on Vista, our function room caters for all types of functions. Milestone birthdays, special religious occasions, work functions, hens or bachelor nights, baby showers, or whatever reason you decide is a good idea to get together with family and friends. Contact our friendly staff who will help you put together a menu that will suit your special occasion. Inquiries can be made via our website, georgesonvista.com.au. George's on Vista, in the heart of Fraser Rise. You'll find us at Caroline Springs, George Cross.
Welcome back to the Football Out West show. You're tuning into the Press Box, and we've got a very, very special guest with us tonight, NICK GALATAS, the AAFC chairperson, and Nick's joining us live. Nick, prior to the break, we were talking about the National Second Division, the proposed National Second Division, and Craig's got a question for you.
Well, actually, I've got a question on behalf of one of the listeners, Josip Vilic, and he's asked the question. You may have seen it there, Nick. Is there an or strategy on what needs to be done in the next 6, 12, 24 months by the clubs wishing to be involved, and what's that, or what is it?
Yeah, so the clubs themselves in developing our report, Craig and Joseph, have developed a set of criteria. And what we say should happen, and again, it's not going to be our final, we don't have the final say to be Football Australia, but what we say the approach should be is that it should be a criteria-based rather than a dollar-based entry requirement. So we'll set certain criteria, and it should be, you've got a stadium of X, you've got, a club that will meet such and such requirements in terms of number of players, coaches, sort of staff, medical, that sort of thing. And once you meet the criteria, you're eligible. And if you're eligible, you can apply, and then you'll hope to be one of the ones selected. So that's our approach. And the clubs have assisted in developing that. In developing it, they've considered the financial viability of the competition and what they can deliver, what they're confident they can deliver, which is well above what the NPL provides, so that it's an advance on the game, a tangible, discernible advance. So they're working on that now, those clubs. Now, whether or not, that's the final, those criteria are what is reflected in the final model the FA produces is another matter. We can't see it being departing too far from it, because our clubs, of course, are the ones that will deliver this. But so they're working on that at the moment. Now, they're not working on it exactly, and ultimately it'll be an EOI that'll go out, an expression of interest, and that will no doubt focus the minds of the clubs more specifically on exactly what they need to meet to participate.
And when does that EOI open, Nick? What's the sort of guideline times on those?
Well, if we're going to start in 2023, it's got to be in a few months. So what will happen is, what we're thinking is for 2023, starting to be the back end of this year, in the second half of this year rather than the back end, I should say, is when that was likely to go out. But that timing is going to depend largely on Football Australia, as I say. They're going to run the program from here. We're going to hopefully be a key participant and stakeholder in how it develops.
Also, Nick, we've had a question come in about a women's national second division and potentially capitalising on the 2023 World Cup momentum in the women's game, which is growing and building for next year and will hopefully leave a lasting legacy. The plan is for a women's national second division, if I'm correct, is 2026. Is that the framework at the moment?
Well, not quite. I won't put a year on it like that, Steve. But we've suggested that absolutely, definitely, we need to expand the women's game. I mean, I've put out some tweet earlier today about that on the back of an article on one of the players from Victoria, Sophia Sakala's playing for Perth Glory at the moment, and how we need to provide greater opportunities for our players. And we keep talking about the pathways, but I like to speak of destinations. So the players have more places they can play at and grow from, so that at the moment, not the W League, but the A-League Women's, as it's now called, only provides, 14 rounds, I think. Nowhere near enough. So that these players are now looking for NPL spots, or some of them will look for overseas spots, or whatever they can do. Clearly not enough. So what we think is the right way to go is to have a fully integrated women's club football in Australia, which provides for growth in the women's game. Now, we've got a World Cup here and a first division, if I can put it that way, an ADW, comprising 14 rounds. I mean, there's something incongruous about that for me. It doesn't work. So what we've said and I've seen this, I should say, guys, I've had some personal experience of this. I've been involved in a club. I was chairman at South Melbourne for many years. We had a women's program, a strong women's program. I'm a great supporter of the women's game. I very much enjoy watching it. And like anything, when you know the players and you know what's going on and you get stuck in, you love it. And I think they play a great brand of football, women. And I think if people had an opportunity to look at it and connect it to their club, so that if you're a Melbourne Knights supporter, you can watch, Melbourne Knights men, Melbourne Knights women. Same with any A-League team, same with any Sydney second division team or NPL team. So what we've said right now is that we, in preparation for a national second division for women, propose very strongly that every participant in the national second division men's starting 2023 should have at the very least, a very strongly developed women program. And the reason we haven't said an NPL team in the women is because, unfortunately, in some parts of the country, some of the strong men's team candidates for a second division aren't in the women's NPL. They want to be, but the NPLs won't be expanded by those states, so that they might have a good women's program and not be NPL. So we're not going to exclude them as second division men's teams, but we're going to insist, if we have our way, on every single participant in the national second division men's having a strong and developing women's program in readiness for a women's national second division a couple of years later.
Yeah, now I was lucky enough a couple of weeks ago, Nick, to be at George Cross when they hosted the W League Melbourne victory against Sydney game there at City Vista Reserve, and you know, I have to say, guys, I've not watched a lot of women's football, but I have to say the standard was very, very good. It was a fast game, some great technique on display from the women. My question, Nick, is with the World Cup just 16 months away, August next year.
Yes.
Is enough still being done at this stage to promote the women's game in Australia? That, as Steve said, you know, hopefully will be a lasting legacy here in Australia for years to come. Because I'm a little bit sceptical at the moment that perhaps we're not doing enough.
Craig, I agree with you. My personal view now, rather, this is not an AAFC view as such, but my personal view on this is that we are really not doing anywhere near enough in the women's game. So we're focusing a lot on the Matildas, and of course we understand why. They're a great representative team for Australia. They've done us proud on the national stage, and that's great. And I think we should continue to do that. And I've got no issue with that. But we've got to keep the tap going from below. And the Matildas, they're the cream of our country's women's football. We need to focus on building the grassroots women's game, and we're not doing that. I've seen the grassroots women's game, and we're focusing too much, in my view, on identifying young women who might go on to play representative football, Matildas football. That's one thing. That's good. That's fine. We should do that, but we should more than that. Not worry about the one in 10,000 that go on to play for the national team. I've just picked that number. It might be one in Walter. I don't know what the number is, but one in many thousands. We should be focusing on the other 99,999. Those that are going to stay and play and find their way in club football, everywhere from ALW to second division to NPL to below, to populate the game, to enjoy the game, to find themselves enmeshed and embedded within the game. And they can also become sponsors later, coaches, referees, and play until their 40s and 50s and 60s, in futsal, and make it a. I still play because I played as a kid and I still love playing. So we need to embed the women's game as part of our football culture, rather than just create it as a Matildas brand. And I think doing that is great and is one thing. I think we've got to work on the other side of it much, much more than we are, is my own view.
Yeah, totally agree.
Nick, we've got a graphic there. So that's part of the report there. And obviously an extensive amount of research has gone into compiling this report. And on the screen there, we can see comparison with major international leagues. I find it absolutely astounding that the second tier, when we look at most of the major clubs, they've got 20, 30, 18, 20, 18. We've got 233 clubs. Yeah. Now, all that tells me there is such a massive difference between the first tier and the second tier.
Yeah.
Now this is probably a personal opinion. Is that probably reflective of the fact that, as far as the Socceroos are concerned, we're really struggling at international level? And in the Asian Confederation, where maybe 5-6 years ago we were really, really dominant, at the moment we're struggling because the way I can see it, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, a lot of the good, talented youngsters are just not able to get an opportunity in the A-League, and they're either going overseas or they're just resigned to playing sort of with their mates type of thing. Yeah. What's your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, well, I'm hoping we don't end up on ancestry.com too much and trying to find their future Socceroos, Tonci. And we do find them from within our game. So my view of it, honestly, there is that it's a complex subject to just knock it over on what's going on now compared to 5 years. There's a lot that goes on, and I'd be very presumptuous to say that Socceroos have fallen off for reason A or reason B. We are a small country. It is our fourth sport. We are competing with Asian countries that are growing at a great rate of knots, and who will inevitably, overtake us. And we shouldn't see that as a negative. We should build our. That's why I'm so keen to build our game domestically, so that Socceroos are our cream. We'll have good runs. We'll have not so good runs. You look at, say, some of the European powers. You look at, Denmark. They don't always dominate. Bulgaria said their run in the past, back in the Stoichkov days, and Hadji, took Romania up there in the Hadji days, and smaller countries in that level have a run, but they're not always up there, and we shouldn't expect to be always up there. Is my personal view. But what I'm very keen to promote and to say, and I said it now the other interviews I've done, and I haven't had a chance here tonight, we've got sort of sidetracked, is that what this is all about, really, when you look at it, and you look at the number of clubs up on that graphic you put up, is that we need a lot of strong clubs. The more strong clubs we've got in the country, the better the diagnosis for our game, the better the health indicator. So if you look at the World Cup winning countries, everyone looks at it the wrong way around and says, oh, look, Germany's winning World Cups, they've got great club football. Italy's winning World Cups, they've got great... Well, it's the other way around. They've got great club football and they're winning World Cups. So that what we've got, and I've said this starkly in the report, 20 years ago, someone in this country made a decision that we should have 7 top teams. It was only 7. It was an 8-team comp in the A-League, one of which was a New Zealand team. So we decided we would focus our efforts on 7 teams, and then everybody would latch on to those teams, one of them, which of course begs the question, if they did and it succeeded, how do you even expand the A-League? Because everyone's got a team. Remember that Yossi ad that we had where everyone had to pick a team a few years ago? And now if everyone did pick a team, you wouldn't have and maybe they did, which is why Western United got no supporters and the like, because how do you grow the game in that way? And we say you can't. So what we need, and you can't have 200 second division teams, because that means it's not a second division. That's just a laugh. Let's just be honest with each other. So what you need is, we say 30, 35 strong clubs in this country. And by that, they're not all going to be Melbourne Victory or Sydney or Sydney FC, because no country's got 30 equal teams or 35 equal teams. Another problem here with franchising and trying to create equality. But if you've got 35 strong countries that are competing, clubs that are competing, across the board at a good level, that means you've got a second division that links to the first division, and then eventually you'll have promotion or relegation, because there's a linkage. So at the moment, our big problem is that we don't have enough teams to create 2 divisions. So what we're about is creating that bridge. So let's pick the best of our NPL, is what we're saying. They're there. Let's unlock or remove the restriction on the NPL. So Tonci, you put up your 2-minute, your short grab of the Melbourne Knights South Melbourne game before, but those teams are playing under some restrictions. They can't do things. They've got player point systems and the like. They can't bring the best players they want to in the club because they've got to comply with rules. Get rid of them. Allow these clubs to be as strong as they can be. Melbourne Knights have said it, very well. And, Parvez Yusuf, someone I know well at Melbourne Knights president, said it best when he said they're probably operating at 20%. Let them operate at 100%, see what they can achieve. And then what you'll have is lots of clubs. And when you've got lots of clubs, the game grows, because that's what clubs are. Clubs are repositories of people and growth. That's what we are. And that's what we went the other way in this country. Now we've started to reverse that process, and we want to complete the reversal. So instead of saying we've got 7 A-League teams, then 8, then 9, then 10, and slowly growing it by 1 at the top level and leaving it there, let's not do that. Let's have 30 strong teams, 35 strong teams. And if we build this bridge and we've got a good national second division, then people will just love the game. They'll be following their team thinking, oh, my team's in a second division, as my Leeds United was and hopefully won't become again in England. But I was following the EPL because, we might play there. And vice versa. No one asked me, who's my EPL team? They say, who do you support in England? I'd say Leeds. So here, it's who's your A-League team? Well, it should be who's your team. That's what we need to get to. Who's your team? Who do you support? And it could be many teams. That's our aim.
All right, Nick, thanks. You've been very generous with your time, and we love the passion that you speak with. We need to wrap up now, but just quickly, the next steps that are to follow from this report.
Well, we've already started them, Steve. We've met with Football Australia very recently, last week, to commence the process of developing the final model, which will be introduced, working to the 2023 timetable. I expect a timetable will come out shortly for the further for those next steps, and that probably will become public. So we'll be able to have chats about that as well as we go.
Awesome, mate. Well, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being the first guest on the Press Box this year in 2022. We hope it's going to be a big year. We hope it's going to be an uninterrupted year. And I guess it augurs well for what is going to be an exciting time for Australian football. We certainly hope with the imminent national second division, and we look forward to having you on later on in the year, mate, when we've got a little bit more information and then we get closer and closer to that exciting NSD as they talk about.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the opportunity, and good luck with your show. Great show. Well done.
Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
And good luck with your daughter's recovery. I hope everything is okay.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Good on you. That was NICK GALATAS, the chairperson of the Association of Australian Football Clubs. And so that brings us to the end of this first show. It's been a mammoth effort behind the scenes to get us order.
We got here at 6 a.m.
Yeah, a big thank you to Jake, who's our technical man behind the scenes. You don't know what he's doing. He's doing so much to try and rectify some of the things, the little gremlins that have been in our show. Although the first one was pretty good. We've had a few issues with the extra time, but hopefully that's all going to be sorted out by next week. So what's on the card for this week? Leading up to next weekend's big episode of the extra time press.
Yeah, back into work, unfortunately. I've got a week off and it's follow up.
I'll see you tomorrow.
You will see me tomorrow. We won't be in the studio. We will be back in the and this year we've got a third member of the stable, of the podcast stable of Pro Soccer. So obviously that's a niche market, but yes, because you're my co-host on that, has been pretty active in the comment section, so really appreciate it. So before we go, just a very quick one from me. Just next week on the website. And really close to the talking to all three of us were actually becoming to discuss the legend of the commentary team on the sports material and most of the focus of the TV that for the and football, he's more within the football,
Really looking forward to that one next week, Steve. It should be a very interesting.
It's going to be a great chat, and if you want to learn about what Jim's got happening, just put the questions in advance, and we might even ask them to him.
Well, he's actually commentating the Manchester United. I think it's Manchester United Arsenal game the evening before, so should be a very good evening for us.
On that note, good night, folks, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.
Good night.